Hurricane Beryl has ripped across the Caribbean, striking Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Mexico, Barbados and Venezuela. The death toll from the Category 4 hurricane is at least 10 and expected to rise as it wreaked havoc in Jamaica, leaving 60% of the island without electricity, accompanied by lack of water and limited communication. The pummeling devastation has caused hundreds of people to move to makeshift shelters. The loss of life and damage wrought by Beryl underscores the consequences of a warmer Atlantic Ocean, which scientists cite as a telltale sign of human-caused climate change fueling extreme weather that differs from past experience. Scientists have discovered what they believe to be the world's oldest artwork, depicting three people gathered around a large red pig inside the Liang Karampuang cave in the Maros Pangkep of the Indonesian island of Sulawesi. The artwork is believed to be created 51,200 years ago. The date given for the Indonesian cave art is quite provocative because it is so much older than what has been found elsewhere, including in Europe, where the first narrative art was thought to have emerged. It is speculated that the paintings were probably made by the first group of humans who moved through Southeast Asia before arriving in Australia about 65,000 years ago. Amidst the ongoing Gaza war, thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews took to the streets of Jerusalem to protest against the military draft ruling. It is the latest demonstration since the Supreme Court's historic ruling that young Haredi men must be conscripted into the Israeli military and are no longer eligible for significant government benefits. Ultra-Orthodox parties have often acted as kingmakers in Israeli politics, giving support to successive governments headed by Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in return for continuing the draft exemption and hundreds of millions of dollars for their institutions. This has been a long-standing cause of friction with secular Jewish Israelis who mostly do compulsory military service and pay the largest share of taxes. Violent protests in Kenya continue as demonstrators call for President William Ruto to step down. The protest started after a controversial tax bill that Ruto passed, only to revert the decision after violent protests. The president promised to talk to the young people who were at the forefront of the protest as the matter de-escalates. However, people are still on the streets demanding his resignation. The 2 weeks of protests have left 39 people dead, according to the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. As unemployment remains high and prices rise, there has been an outrage over the luxurious lives of the president and other senior officials. The Gen Zs, who are the most affected by unemployment, are leading the protest. And in some positive news, Ottawa has named a woman as the country's top soldier for the first time ever after continuing a push by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to appoint women to the senior-most jobs. Lieutenant General Jenny Carignan, in charge of efforts to stamp out ingrained sexism and misconduct in the armed forces, will take over on July 18th as the Chief of the Defence Staff. Carignan, originally a military engineer, has commanded troops in Afghanistan, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Iraq and Syria during her 35 years in the army. Carignan takes over at a time when the armed forces are struggling to meet recruitment goals and have been slow to replace outdated equipment. Hello, you're watching Global Compass, the weekly show that updates you on all that has been happening around the world. And in our next segment, let's take a look at some of the stories that were specifically featured on Strat News Global. As the conflict intensifies between the Arakan army rebels and military junta forces, Rohingya civilians find themselves caught in the crossfire, with many fleeing to neighbouring Bangladesh. The army laid siege to Mongdor last month and rolled out warnings against its 70,000 Rohingya residents to evacuate. The junta continues to battle the AA, labelling them terrorists. This conflict has trapped tens of thousands of Rohingyas in Mongdo, as Bangladesh has already refused to admit any more refugees in the country. The latest crisis compounds the long-standing persecution of Rohingya in Buddhist-majority Myanmar. Sierra Leone has passed a groundbreaking legislation against child marriage. President Julius Maada Bio said this legislation is a provision that empowers individuals forced into marriage as children to seek legal recourse. Notably, the law allows survivors to file for annulment, effectively erasing the legal bonds of their unwanted unions. This crucial aspect of the legislation offers hope and a path to freedom for countless individuals trapped in marriages they never choose. It criminalizes marrying any girl who is under 18 years old. Offenders face up to 15 years in prison or a fine of around $4,000 or both. Witnesses to such marriages will also face jail or a fine. Sierra Leone is home to 800,000 child brides, with half of them married before the age of 15, according to the UN Children's Agency. China has supported Kazakhstan's joining the BRICS bloc as the group expands. Addressing the media during his SCO meeting in Astana, President Xi Jinping encouraged Kazakhstan to, quote, play the role of a middle power on the global stage and make its due contribution to global governance, unquote, while endorsing Astana's accession. China and Russia are pushing for the expansion of the BRICS grouping, which also includes Brazil, India, and South Africa, as they seek to counter Western economic dominance. This bid by China is favorable for India, as New Delhi is on good terms with Astana. And in more news from the SCO meeting, Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar agreed to disagree with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on the border issues during the summit. The External Affairs Minister highlighted the need to achieve complete disengagement from the remaining areas in eastern Ladakh and restore border peace and tranquility. He reaffirmed the importance of abiding by relevant bilateral agreements, protocols and understandings reached in the past. He reiterated that the line of actual control must be respected. China, on the other hand, reiterated on maintaining the bilateral relations from a strategic height, strengthen communication, properly handle differences, and ensure that China-India relations move forward. And elections in major European countries, France and the United Kingdom. In France, the first phase of polling on the 30th June has placed the far-right National Rally, or RN, led by Marine Le Pen and its allies in the lead with a 33% vote share. The New Popular Front, a left-wing coalition, came second with 28%, while Macron's centrist bloc got only 20.7% of the vote share. The sudden call for elections 3 years too soon appears to be an attempt by Macron to stop the national rally, and that seems to have been a miscalculation. The second phase of polling is on the 7th of July, that is, today. But unlike France, the United Kingdom saw the emergence of the Liberal Democrats in the general elections after 14 years. The Labour Party won the UK elections in a landslide. The Conservatives or Tories lost power in a spectacular defeat, and Britain bid farewell to Rishi Sunak. Keir Starmer, who will be the new Prime Minister of UK, said, quote, change begins now, unquote. A few weeks earlier, Senior Fellow of the London-based International Institute of Strategic Studies, Rahul Roy-Chaudhury, had indicated that it was not going to be an easy ride for Sunak and his Conservative Party. I spoke to him again after the results to understand how Starmer will take the United Kingdom forward and what the Labour's comeback means for the British and for India. Watch this excerpt from his interview. I get this feeling that it's going to be an uphill battle for Sir Starmer, because he has an economy to revive and a host of other issues. Of course, the first thing he said that, now changes will be made. There are going to be changes. What do you think he's actually going to do? I mean, he's talked about it, but does he actually have a plan in place?
So, Nilajana, firstly, you're absolutely right. The mood in London yesterday, I was outside 10 Downing Street, and even this morning, the mood in London is somber. There was no huge party that the Labour Party government had last night, or a parade or a victory parade that it had in 1997 when Tony Blair became Prime Minister after many years. And I think that really is indicative of what, as you said, the UK is going through. For Sir Keir Starmer, it is really okay, listen, there's no honeymoon period. There is no period to sort of, reflect on the victory. It is really, let's get down to business. And that is the message that he sent to all his ministers when he appointed them yesterday. And ministerial appointments at a junior level will continue for the next 2 days. So the message is somber, it is be effective, result orientated. And there's a huge task for him. Rachel Reeves, the first woman, a shadow chancellor in the UK, has publicly said yesterday that there isn't very much money in the coffers. So I think the first thing is they'll have to take stock of what the Conservative government, after 14 years, has left them. And then there are a host of domestic issues that have to be tackled first. The cost of living crisis, the economic growth, trade relationships, NHS, education. All these things are what the Labour Party manifesto has said needs to be changed. And they have to now start looking at the change. What is the change? To be honest, we're not quite sure yet. When you look at the fine print, you can't quite see where they're going with this. And I think it's understandable. Remember, this is a government and a party that is forming the government after 14 years. Lots of ideas, but they need to be practical. And I think we will see what he means by change in the next few days and weeks.
Right, right. Let's move towards India now. Um, Starmer seems to be very keen to start trade. He has definitely said in his manifesto that the FTA, the free trade agreement, will go on. How quickly do you see things happening, especially when it comes to individual sectors and when it comes to the FTA between India and the United Kingdom?
So let me just put this in some context. To my mind, there's no question that India will continue to be important for the Labour government. But the question I have is really how important will India be to the Labour government? And the reason I ask this question is that it's very clear in 4 areas India's importance will continue, whether it is in terms of trade issues. India is the fifth largest economy in the world, well on its way to becoming the third largest economy in the next 3 or 4 years. In terms of India's foreign policy and influence and global profile, clearly, the Labour government will want to deal with India. In terms of free trade agreement, you mentioned, of course, that's again an important aspect. And also in terms of India's military capability in the Indo-Pacific region. That's again something that is very useful. And finally, on the diaspora, 1.5 million British Indians. So, for these 4 reasons, India will continue to be important to the Labour government. But the question really is how important will it be? And the reason I ask this is because for the Labour government, we still don't know what its foreign policy orientation will be. Will it be a Euro Atlantic focus in terms of theaters in relation to the Indo Pacific? Will there be more focus on Ukraine, Russia, what is happening in the United States than the Indo Pacific? If that is the case, then where does India sit in this mix? Will India be the top priority for the UK government, as it was for the Conservative government in the past? Or will it be among other countries such as Japan and South Korea? The third point is on the strategic partnership. There is a roadmap, a 10-year roadmap. There is a comprehensive strategic partnership. The Labour Party has talked about a new strategic partnership. We honestly don't know what that means. Will it be a continuation of the roadmap? Will it be a roadmap 2.0, or will it not be? So, the priority that the Labour government will give India still has to be set, and the free trade agreement comes within that context. My sense is that the rhetoric is now over, and the hard reality will start biting. the Labour government, I don't think, is going to be in a position to deliver anything for India, at least not before the party conference in October. And even then, we'll have to see what the grassroots activists in the Labour Party, who are now emboldened, may put in the way of obstacles in this relationship. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm not overly optimistic that we're going to get India is going to get a sort of a priority from the new Labour government.
You can watch the entire interview on Strat News Global on Tuesday. I do hope you have subscribed to this channel and gotten your friends and family who are interested in foreign affairs to do it as well. I hope you will like and share this show. And it's time to wrap up this week's Global Compass. But before we let you go, here is a glimpse of Kichak, which is a form of Bellini's Hindu dance and music drama that was developed in the 1930s. Since its creation, it has been performed primarily by men, but now includes women as well. The dance is based on the story of the Ramayana and is traditionally performed in temples and villages across Bali, Indonesia. This performance was organized to celebrate India-Indonesia relations by the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in New Delhi. This group, the Geox Dance Group, performed under Professor I. Wayan Dibya, whom the Indian government has honoured with the Padma Shri. I will see you next week. Till then, take care.
Senang